Hi there, and welcome to the Jane Anderson Show. I am thrilled that you are here and that you're able to be part of the podcast today. I have a very special guest coming on shortly, but before I talk to her and you get to hear from her, I wanted to share with you a little bit about what I do. So I'm the creator and founder of the Women with Influence community, and we work with women who have consulting practices and who are selling to large and sometimes medium and small organizations, but particularly in the B2B space. Most of the women who are listening to the podcast are often in our community, and they are typically selling and building a practice that is generally up to $1 million plus. So they have speaking, training, coaching, consulting, and they might be experts in areas such as leadership development, resilience, mindset, wellbeing, high performance, all those things, communications, personal branding, all those things, and all the things that I spent many years doing. I've been on the side of selling to large organizations, so clients like Telstra, Rio Tinto, IKEA, Lego, and then also I've been employed in those organizations. I've been employed as a training and development manager and learning and development manager and head of capability for a large retailer and in government. So I've been on the other side, and I've been also the person deciding on bringing those people into our organization. So we focus on helping people, and particularly women, to do the great work that they do and to work with the type of clients they really want to work with and to live that life of fulfillment, to have a bit of fun along the way, and ultimately to really have freedom to work with who you want to work with, where you want to work, and to live the lifestyle that you really want to live. So our very special guest today is a woman called Ronnie Benbow. So Ronnie is the founder of the Carers Foundation. She's the founder and CEO. And Ronnie and I met because we were in a program that we were selected by the Queensland State Premier at the time, back in 2018, I think it was, or 2019. And we were part of a fempreneur type community, but it was a bunch of women. There were 19 of us that were selected and identified by the Premier who were creating positive change in the community. And Ronnie and I got along very well, and Ronnie has joined our community, and I've known Ronnie ever since then. We've done I had a lot of fun together. But Ronnie is an extraordinary human being. She is when I think about Ronnie, she is just the epitome of love. Ronnie she's come from a nursing background, and so really came from that health and wellbeing and care space. But she realised over time, and while she was had the support of her husband when he was caring for her, and she's gotten to know a lot of carers, is that she realised that there was this really big gap in the support for carers, so that caring for the carers, if you like. And so as a result, she has created the Carers Foundation. And her vision has been to be able to help people, and particularly families and young children in particular, who are as young as 8 are often caring for family members. They're under extreme pressure, struggling with kids with school and being able to get things done, parents who are unwell and needing carers. And so Ronnie has created an incredible program where these carers get to come and get away, have a break, and at no cost. So she's an incredible fundraiser. She knows how to build community. She knows how to create influence. She knows how to create fundraising efforts to create incredible experiences for these, poor people that really deserve it. So I had to get Ronnie on the show because she has done an incredible job in building up the platform and the profile of the Carers Foundation and achieving some incredible fundraising targets that she set to be able to go and help more people who are suffering in this space. So I hope that you enjoy the interview with Ronnie today. Keep an eye out for the future episodes, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you can jump on the website. We've got some great tools that you can download, which are things like how to the top 10 things clients are looking for you if you're working with corporate. So there's a bunch of tools and resources there, and I'd love to hear from you if there's somebody that you think that you'd love to hear from. So enjoy the show. All right. Hi, Ronnie. So
Hi,
glad
Jane.
you could join us today. Thank you so much. You are one very busy lady, so it's a thrill to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Jane. It's my honour to be here, to be honest. Thank you.
Ronnie, you are just one of the most extraordinary people and exceptional people that I have had the pleasure of knowing. Ronnie, you are, the founder, and you run the Carers Foundation, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But for those who are listening, are you happy to share a little bit about your background and how you've got to this point and what sort of led you to setting up the Carers Foundation?
Of course, it's my passion. I'm more than happy to share it. So it started a long time ago. I'm a registered nurse, and it was during my early days when I was training as a trainee nurse. So we used to work in the community, in that we would go and visit, the clients, which would be the person with the disability or the illness. But I would notice back then, and I was only 17, that the carers were the ones that were actually falling apart, and they were the ones that had a worse health condition than the person they were caring for.
Wow.
And I just used to think back, way back then, like, who cares for the carers? And it turned out nobody did, and nothing much has changed over the last 45 years. But what really impacted me the most is I went to, we were caring for this young man. He was only 15. His name was Tom, and he was caring for his mother, who had had a massive stroke. And he had to do all her personal care. He had to do everything for her. She couldn't walk, talk, eat, do anything. So he had to give up school. He had to give up all his hobbies. He had no friends. And every time we went around, we could see him deteriorating, and we could see him falling into a deep depression. We could see how angry and resentful he was, even though he loved his mum. But he had to give up school. He had no time for anything for himself. And I could see, I was actually more worried about him than his mother, obviously, because she was getting all the care she needed.
Right.
And as being a nurse, you move on to a different area. And then I discovered, and Tom was only a couple of years younger than me, but I discovered when I was 19 that Tom had actually taken his own life.
Oh,
and I
gosh.
guess I still get emotional about it, because it's like, no, and I've always I vowed then and there, and if he only knew that, like, my whole lifetime's dedication work has been devoted because of Tom, that I just decided then that no carer should be alone or unsupported. And I wanted to I've had this lifelong dream and vision of having a wellbeing centre specifically for unpaid family carers, so they don't be alone or they're not unsupported, and they can come to any time they need to. So that's where it all started, and I guess it's taken a lifetime to get here, because then I moved on. I actually finished my career. I did 2 or 3 other degrees, and then I got married. I had 4 beautiful boys, and then continued with my career. But then, ironically, I became the carer when my husband had a near fatal accident. So he was paralysed from the neck down. So I had to care for him. I had to give up my nursing career. I had to run his businesses, and then have 4 small children, actually, because there was one that came along the way. So I guess, and then one of our 4 beautiful boys, after he recovered, we moved down to Brisbane, and we decided to start the Carer Wellbeing Centre, but it was really difficult, not much around. And then one of our 4 boys had a serious medical condition. So that took 7 years. That was a 7-year cycle.
Wow.
And in the background, we were working with organisations like Carers Queensland or Some Care or other care organisations to do wellbeing programs for carers. Right. And I could see that what I wanted to do, it was there. I could see the significant difference it made in 3 days. And I said to my husband, this is what we have to do. We have to do this. But then I was also caring for my elderly parents in the background.
Oh, wow.
So for 15 years, we privately funded wellbeing programs and saw the significant difference that it made. But it wasn't the right time to do it full time. So it was only when my father passed away, he had a massive stroke, and my beloved father passed. And I vowed then and there that I my rest of my life to caring for carers, which is what I've done, really. So that's how it all started. And it's ongoing.
Just incredible, Ronnie. Like, not only, you've seen all the facets of care, not only the person needing the care in the first place, but then the carer, and then the experiences you've had in your own life in terms of your husband and your children, and just incredible. What was that? And
that's condition.
Oops, I've lost you a bit there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ronnie?
Yeah, sorry, did we lose you?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, they'll edit that bit.
Okay.
So, and what was the other one I missed that you said?
There's one condition that we have with the one that I won't sort of um, negotiate, and that every single person involved with the foundation has to have lived caring experience, because
Oh,
you
right.
just
Okay.
don't understand unless you've been there. So we've all been there. We've all been down that dark hole where you don't know how you're going to cope from day to day or minute to minute or, hour to hour. So we all know what it's like. So when people come to our programs, they know that, like they feel that. We've got the compassion, we've got the empathy. We really get it, and they feel that when they come. So I think that's what our point of difference is, that we have really deep compassion and understand and really resonate with all the carers that we do care for.
Right. And Ronnie, I mean, the work you have done in this space, you have won, you are an Order of Australia medal holder. Ronnie and I met with we were in the Queensland Voices, Women's Voices back in 2019, where we were both one of, I think there were 20 or 19 of us in that group, which was where you and I met, for advancing women. Thankfully you have been acknowledged a lot for your work, but the awards don't always necessarily easily translate into funds. You have to actually do some work. You have worked your butt off to make this happen. For those who are listening, Ronnie, I think it's quite fascinating of what you've done is, and that you're continuing to do, is because there's these elements of applying for funding and things like that, and that's quite limited in what you can get there in terms of keeping the foundation going. But what I think you've done really uniquely is you have really tapped into the business market and tapping into relationships with business owners and the business community to really create this other side of the branding, the positioning, but leveraging yourself and the face of the Carers Foundation to really help grow that funding and drive that funding over to the Carers Foundation. Are you happy to, watching you do these incredible events and things, and, you really get that people congregate, people get together, and there are opportunities to be able to drive this growth for the foundation. Are you happy to share a little bit about that? Because it's really fascinating to watch, and I think you really have, tapped into exactly what needs to happen to drive that growth. Are you happy to share your thinking behind that and how that all works?
Of course, it was a real challenge to do, because, we've had limited funding to do anything like that. So, we've had to do it all ourselves. So we have to be really imaginative and come up with different ideas all the time because there's the charity market. It's so competitive. Like, there's so many different charities now, and they're all competing for the same dollar. Yes. And it's really hard to try and break in. And if you don't get that government funding, which we don't any longer, you have to come up with really different, unique ways to try and get people, to support you. So, I'm a great believer in marketing and meeting with other people in networking, and resonating with, the right people, because everybody understands what it's like to know a carer. Like, somebody knows somebody that, like, has cared for somebody, their mother's cared for somebody, there's, blah, blah, blah. And my passion is actually the teenage carers that people don't know anything about. So I guess when you share those stories, like I did with Tom, people, like, they're quite shocked and overwhelmed. They're like, really? There's kids out there caring for their parents? And I say, yes, and they're not identified. They don't talk about it. But I'm getting off the track here. But, really, when you get out there and share that story and get people to sort of hear what they don't know, I think it shocks a lot of people and they want to know more. So I guess they're happy to support you, because it makes a big difference when you do get that big network of support. And the people that have approached me have had lived caring experience, like, for example, Sonia Stradiotto, who's a big supporter of ours, and she cared for her mum, and she's had other caring experience as well with within the family. But Sonia really resonated with the whole caring issue, and she realised that she was lucky enough to have support, but majority of carers don't. And majority of the carers are single women, because most of the partners can't cope with it and they do leave them. So they're single mums trying to cope with children with disabilities, or caring with ageing parents, or partners with, cancer or motor neurone disease. So to do that on your own, you have to give up your career. And I guess they can resonate with that, because they don't want to be in that position. They don't want to think, oh, my gosh, I hope that doesn't happen to me, but it potentially could happen to them. Yes. So, I just, those events, it attracts a lot of women in a different way. Like, they want to come and see a big fashion event, but then they get there and hear about the cause so they can actually, share and, then realise that, they do need to support this sort of thing because it could happen to them one day. You just don't know when it could happen, or their sister or their brother. The people that are the big supporters are the ones that do know what it's like. They have had, lived experience. So I guess, you're right. Getting out there and meeting, the more you can network, the more you get the word out there, the better it is obviously for, just the community and raising that awareness for the foundation, for the carers, obviously for the Carers Foundation. But it's, it's difficult. It's so time consuming. It's like a whole full-time job on its own, just doing that. And there's a full-time job doing events, and it's another full-time job doing the foundation. So you're right. It's hard. You do work really hard if you haven't got the funding to pay people to do that. But hopefully you eventually will be able to build up enough that we'll be able to sort of increase those income streams and, have, regular occurring, recurrent funding.
Yes, because the funding that you generate is you have a retreat centre because it's a space that the carers can come away and have some space for themselves to actually get some nurturing for them. And you run retreats in southeast Queensland as well as other places in the state. You're on the go all the time. What are some of the things that the Carers Foundation does to be able to help carers?
So we focus on their wellbeing, their mental health and their wellbeing. And that's really important because by the time the carers arrive with us, they're at the end of their tether. They can't cope anymore. And this is what I'm trying to break, because really the only time they get support is when they're ready to go to hospital, when they're at breaking point. And I believe that realistically, if we could support carers and offer them 2 wellbeing programs a year, they know they can come, and that will keep them, give them hope to know they can come back. Whereas at the moment, people are arriving, they haven't had a day off in 7 years or 13 years or 20 years, and they're just beyond exhausted. They can't think. They're actually suicidal by the time they come to us.
Wow.
They can't cope anymore. In fact, the last group I had one lady arrive, and she rang on Sunday and said she couldn't come. And I said, no, you really need to do this for yourself. Please come. This is not, you don't need to feel guilty. It's not time away. You need to do this for you, to be better for you and improve your well-being, because I know you're not coping at the moment. So she actually came, and then she was really at the end of the tether. She was so broken by the time. She was exhausted beyond, you get so beyond despair when you can't touch anybody. You're so exhausted. So within 3 days, our programs are really quite comprehensive. So we do a lot of wellbeing strategies. We do a lot of mental health resilience. We do full body massages to restore not only their body, but their mind, and, they're emotionally, they connect with others. So it's quite powerful because they come alone and disconnected, and they meet others. So they're really quite connected. And I remember on that 3rd day that she came up to me, that same woman, she kept hugging us so tight, and she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I said, no, you don't need to thank us. This is what we love to do. We love supporting women like yourself. She goes, no, I really need to thank you, because when I rang on that Sunday, I had prepared to kill myself. She actually was ready to commit suicide. But something that you said to me made me come, and I knew I had to come. And ever since, we've been in touch ever since, and she's just been forever grateful, because that's how low they get. And that shouldn't, it's just not right. And the government, they don't support the carers. The carers in replacement healthcare costs are saving the government over $86 billion annually, which is over $1.4 billion a week. If everybody stopped caring, which the government know they won't, and walked off, they won't walk off the job because they won't leave their loved ones. And they take advantage of that, which is really quite a shame. And there's only nearly 3 million carers in Australia, so there's probably 1 in 9 people at the moment. And a lot of those people are teenagers.
1 in 9?
1 in 9 people are caring for somebody. And as I said, some of these are 12 years old, 8 years old. And there's just no acknowledgement or awareness for them. So we're still battling and fighting to raise that, doing what we can. But we do get tied up with doing our programs because we're so passionate about supporting carers. And as you say, we are all over Queensland at the moment, but we do need, our long-term goal is to get a new centre specifically for carers, which they can come to any time before they reach that, breaking point.
Right.
So that's the ultimate goal.
Incredible. And if you look at, for those who are listening to this, most of the women are in the B2B space. If we think about in for organisations, the research tells us that organisations, it's the first time we've had 5 generations in a workplace at one time. And if we look at EAP providers within organisations, where people would seek perhaps some support or for some mental health support if they were struggling at work, we know that Gen X are typically those who are in leadership roles, but they are the sandwich people because they've kind of got children, but they're caring for children, but they're caring for perhaps elderly parents as well. They're often under a lot of pressure in their jobs and at work. So you've got this whole generation sitting within a workplace. And if you look at that whole generation, if you say, well, about 1 in 10, we're not even counting teenagers just yet. Like that's just phenomenal. Teenagers and children looking for parents. Then you've got, this whole challenge for organisations to be able to support, retain, attract good leaders. And we've got a whole bunch of them who have caring duties that are going on outside of work just to try and keep their job so that they can, keep everything going. They're under incredible pressure, aren't they?
They are.
So,
and a lot of my carers that do work, they don't tell their employees that they are carers because they're too afraid that they'll lose their job, which is outrageous because they should be supported more. And I think these organisations need to look at, who is in their workforce and who can they support with the caring role.
Yes. It's such valuable work, Ronnie, that you're doing. And, I think and part of your brand, what you've been able to do is, you have not only do you speak at these events, but you have built your brand to an extent to help it create that accessibility so that people go, there's a face and there's a name that comes with the Carers Foundation. And people really, do you find people really connect with
they
you?
do. It's interesting, isn't it? Because
as part of that?
Me, I'm not speaking is not my most favourite thing, but I do it. But it's amazing how many people will come up to you and they'll know you. So, I know you. I've met you before. And I go, and I've seen you and I saw you speak. And I go, oh, okay. Right. You're amazing. And I think, I'm very humble. I, don't enjoy that side of it at all. Because my passion is just, raising the awareness and getting more
service
support. But it's quite interesting. That's one area that I do have to, look at and expand because I do need to speak more because every time I do, it's amazing how many people come up to me and say, or we'll get donations afterwards, because they were affected by it. And they'll say, yes, I resonated so much because, I cared for blah, 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 blah. And it just goes on. It actually hits the spot that they don't. And some people, and it's very true for most carers that you don't consider yourself a carer. You're just your wife caring for your husband or you're a parent caring for your children as I did when I was. But still, that need to get that support, because there's just not enough support out there. And as I said, no carer should be alone or unsupported. In this economy, especially when they're doing it really tough at the moment. Like a lot of our carers just don't have money for food and basic essentials, and they're not being cared for by people that should be. And I've got carers that actually struggle for basic human rights and basic essentials. Rather, such as oxygen and adult nappies for their adult children. And, it's just not right that they have to go in every day. It's like a battle every day for them to get things that they need. Incredible. And it breaks your heart when you hear all the stories. Like we cannot believe the stories that we hear in Australia. We think this is not a third world country. We're hearing these stories that are just dire and it shouldn't be. So that's why we just need to keep making more noise and getting more awareness and getting more support for them.
And something that you did, particularly during COVID, that was really interesting was you created this campaign, which was the Who Cares campaign. Are you happy to share a bit about
Well, it was interesting because we'd actually sat down earlier in January and had our whole fundraising strategy for the year and the business strategy and how we're going to do all these events, because prior to that we had been getting government funding, but that had all changed. And so we transitioned out. So we were doing all these huge, big plans. And, of course, then there were all the bushfires and everybody got the bushfire, the charity fatigue from donating so much. And then, of course, COVID hit. So you couldn't plan anything. It was like all our whole plans was down the drain. We couldn't do anything. And I was getting desperate, frantic calls from the carers because they were so scared. The fear was very real and they didn't know how it was going to affect them because none of us knew in the early stages of COVID what it was going to be. There was so much fear-mongering on the media. And, they said, we can't afford to get sick. What happens to us if we get sick and, our recipients who we're caring for, they're immunosuppressed and they're compromised and So they were living in this huge fear, and I thought, this is horrible. And I thought, what can we do to change it? So we did start. We started up we actually did a weekly Facebook on live, and we called that the
Yes.
Big Hug. So we did that just to take their mind off it, and we just did dad jokes, and we were doing our trivia. And we would get a guest speaker coming in each week. It was really challenging through COVID, but we'd sort of do that, get them in, like carers or people in the industry that have stories. That was great. We did that for about an hour. We did that for about 48 weeks, and we were getting an audience of about 10,000 a week. So it was huge.
Did you really?
We did.
Isn't
it was
that
huge.
Incredible?
And then we started the Who Cares campaign. So I thought, well, look, we can't raise money. Let's just raise awareness. So I just sent out, because everybody was at home, all these, I sent out celebrities all the T-shirts with Who Cares on it. It's like, could you please join our Who Cares campaign to raise awareness? And the majority of them did. Yes. So we had a whole host of people join us. We had, I think we had Celeste Barber and Cameron Dano and, so many people, Maggie Beer and all the people I could think of. We were just sending them out, and they actually joined in. So that was great. So that went on for about 18 months, which was really fantastic. And it did help us raise a fair bit of awareness, actually. So that was great. Didn't raise any money, but it raised awareness. But that was good. People still talk about the Who Cares campaign. So at the moment, we're doing the Unsung Heroes, which is another campaign we're doing, which will be our annual fundraiser, signature event, where we have 10 influential business people across Brisbane and Gold Coast, where they've committed to raising $20,000 each. And then on the 7th of October this year, they all come together and do their big sing-off. And then we have prizes for the one that's raised the most money, one that's raised, the best singer, the worst singer, the people's choice, judges' choice. So it's just a fun way of getting people engaged again in the community. And then obviously when they come on the night, they'll find out about the foundation and learn more about what we do and hear from some of the carers. So that's just another, little initiative.
So great. Yeah. I love that, you just totally get that you've got to get out there in the community. And I love that you are so humble, but so in service of who you advocate for. And, you don't worry about all that. You go, look, you know what? This is just what I've got to do. This is the people, this is the community I lead, and this is the job I've got to do. And, you totally get that whatever it takes, it's you get the people connect with you. You are the epitome of love and kindness. And I love that you called that weekly catch up with community, 10,000 people, the big hug. If you ever get to meet Ronnie, that's exactly what you get when you get to meet Ronnie. And I love that, because I think this is really what being able to build out, we think in business to business sales and the women with influence and all that sort of stuff, but you really get what the heart of this is to make this work, is that it's not just about, this is our life's work. This is the work that we've been put on the planet to do. And regardless of whether you're working for a charity or whether you've got your own business or whatever it is the space that we hold and that we have in Women with Influence, or for us as experts in our field, is there's so much work, whether it's standing on stages, whether it's sharing your story, whether it's being vulnerable enough to write a book, but being vulnerable enough to share a story, to put yourself out there, to stand on a stage and say, well, you know what? I'm here, but it's not about me. It's not about me at all. I'm just here representing a group. I'm here representing a message, and I'm here representing a mission on something that I am trying to change in the world. And I love that quote that says, you've got to be the change that you want to see in the world. And, Tom's story, you are just, an incredible leader, Ronnie, being able to show how it's done. And you do it with so much incredible humility and grace and kindness and love, and it just is so much service. But I so admire how much you balance that, because that's just who you are. It's not even an effort, but you are prepared to be the face of something and in so much service, because this is what it takes to help these people. Your community are so lucky to have you. Ronnie, for those who are perhaps listening to this and they're trying to work out how do they put themselves out there, if they're wanting to be involved in and identifying where that community are for them, who will help them to grow their cause and their mission, what are some of the things you might say to them? What words of encouragement, or, because there's a lot of women that, we work with that are, oh gosh, trying to write a newsletter and trying to do these things is hard, and put myself out there. How have you been able to get your head around that and
Oh,
to
wow.
do that?
I guess, yeah, it's always a challenge, but you just have to keep focusing on your end goal and your passion.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
that's what you have to keep bringing it back to. If you've got that passion that
Right.
you want to get out there, just keep thinking of that, because you will have days that are just so hard and so ridiculous. You just
Yes.
think, is this all worth it? I can't do this anymore. We've been through periods where we've had absolutely no funding, and and you're reliant on people to donate their time. And people, this is why you see the significant change you make. So you just have to really remember your core purpose and why you do it. Really, at the end,
Yes.
and just keep coming back to that. And and when you're having those days where you think, how are we going to get through the next week, as hard as it is, you just have to keep remembering that. And I guess another big lesson I've learned is never take no for an answer. That people,
Right.
all naysayers, that's a big
Yeah.
one. They all love to say,
Right.
well, you're never going to do that. You never will. Obviously, that's going to give you fire to do it, because you think, well, I'm going to find a way to do it now that you think I can't. And I guess I always expect, and of course, when I first started, I didn't know how to do anything. So I've had to learn how to write grants and how to apply for things. So writing grants over and over and over, and always getting knocked back. And what on earth? Why can't these people get it? I guess. So now it's like I just write grants, and I think we'll always expect a no. And then if you get yes, just
Bonus.
have no expectations. I guess is the last thing, is have no expectations when people promise you the world, and it happens when you have a charity in particular. People promise you the world. They're going to do this, they're going to do that, but they never deliver. So just have no expectations. And now I just say, oh, that's really lovely. If you can support us, that would be wonderful. But just don't have any expectations, because, half the time they don't deliver, but I'll follow up. But, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, just don't be disappointed, because then you can't be disappointed if you don't get, what they promise, if you have no expectations. And it takes a long time to learn that. And, you have to get beaten over the head a few times, and that's what you feel like. I think, really, how many times does it have to happen? But at the end of the day, I just keep focusing back. When I have those dark days where I think, what on earth am I doing? Just go back to your vision and your passion and why you're doing it, and that core purpose. And that just brings me back saying, well, I know why I have to do it, because I have to save these women. All these carers, I have to save all these carers, not just the women, the kids and the men, because we have a lot of male carers as well. It's just knowing what you do, how much of a difference it makes, and that's what keeps my fire alive anyway.
Oh, that's such great advice, Ronnie, because it can be hard, because at first you're sort of thinking, oh, well, I leave my corporate job, I've had all these years of experience in, and then I'll leave and I'll start this thing and this will be great. But then you do hit a wall around your purpose. And if that purpose isn't really clear and strong, and that it's compelling enough, then that's going to be a battle. And I think for you, you are just so on purpose every single day, rain, hail, or shine. You just do it. And Ronnie, my last question for you is, for those women who are, like yourself, as I said, there's, when you're putting yourself out there, there can be fear around a bit of self-protection and boundaries and, those sorts of things. And I want to help people, but, I've got to know my value and my worth, and it can be a lonely game by yourself. What sorts of things do you do to have your own sort of self-care, because you are the carer for everybody else?
Yeah, I know.
What do you do to look after yourself that, say others might be able to tap into?
Yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn, because, as I said before, I'm a giver, and I don't tend to stop and look after myself. And I for years I would say, I'm okay. People would say, what are you doing? I'm okay. But I've learnt the hard way, and I don't practice I wasn't practice what I was preaching. Even my boys said, Mum, when are you going to practice what you preach? Because they could see I wasn't caring for myself. And last year that happened. I actually did hit the wall, and I realised that, okay, I need to get this balance. That's what my word is, balance. I have to get the balance so that I can actually learn to look after myself as well as do what I do. So I've learned the hard way because I did fall in a deep hole and it took me a while to get out, but I realised that, yes, okay, I need to now focus on myself first, and is exactly what we tell the carers. You have to focus on your own well-being because you cannot help others if you can't, yourself is, not, if you're not in a good space yourself. So now I really try just to do my monthly, check-up and, go and see my therapist, my natural therapist, and she does what she calls a Ronnie tune-up. So every month to get back online again, and just mentally just try to keep that positive attitude. Connect with people is a big one, and do connect with people like yourself, Jane, that are so positive and are just so wonderful for our communities, with everybody. I think that's really important. I mean, it's hard at first to reach out, but I think once you've done that, you realise how important it is and to keep doing that. So, just keep your tribe, find the people that keep you uplifted and keep supporting you, and and work with people like yourself.
That's such great advice, Ronnie, because, for women that are in our community or that are, running their own consulting practices, it's high purpose work, takes a lot of commitment. Not only that, but they have to, create, they're having to initiate a lot of things. It's not just sit and do, Google AdWords. It's a lot of really committed work to drive change and to spark a conversation and get people aware and get people talking and get people thinking, and writing books and the vulnerability that comes with all that. So I think you're right, is just trying to work out, get the right people around you to help you to look after yourself. It's hard on your own. So whether it's doctors, naturopaths, a mentor, your community, all those things, that's such great advice, Ronnie. So Ronnie, if people want to follow you and learn more about the Carers Foundation and some of the great work that you're doing, where would they be best to go?
Yes, they can find us on Instagram. So we're Carers Foundation on Instagram. We're on Facebook, the Carers Foundation on Facebook. Our website is thecarersfoundation.org. They can find out all, more information about what we do, more specific information, and they can see what programs are happening, what events are happening. They can join in there and look at our unsung heroes if they wanted to join in and see who's actually singing. If they want to come along and support us that way, that would be amazing, and to support any of the heroes. So, yeah, and if you want to be a hero, let us know if you can sing. You can be one of my heroes next year.
Even better. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ronnie. We look forward to following your journey and keeping an eye on Unsung Heroes and where it all goes to from here. So thank you so much for joining us.
Are you back? Oh, damn, it froze just at the end.
That's all right. I was just saying thank you so much for joining us. You've shared so much incredible knowledge, insights and wisdom to inspire us to all be able to really step up and put ourselves out there. So we look forward to following your journey, and we're all cheering you on.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks so much. It's been great. Thank you.